Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello and welcome to Authors on Mission podcast, where we dive deep into the strategies and insights from established experts who've achieved remarkable success in their fields and written a book about it. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer here at Authors on Mission, and I am here joined by Brad Elder. He is a practicing attorney, the CEO of Select Title, and he's leveraged his expertise to craft a really intricate tale of corporate espionage, cartel operations, a desperate rescue mission, and it just blurs the lines between justice and vengeance. It's very exciting. I'm, looking forward to diving in about it. Brad has told me that his journey from asking himself, why not me, to completing a full-length thriller is just an inspiring example for anybody listening today who also has some creative passions that they're looking to add into the mix beyond their professional success. So we're going to learn about how his background in law informed his storytelling, the challenges of writing a novel, and of course, the compelling world of Recoil of Justice. All that aside, Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Danielle. Great to be here.
It's great to have you on. I'm really looking forward to this one. I get a lot of different books that I get to chat about on this podcast, and thrillers are some of my favorites, but not always as common. So I'm really looking forward to this one. So I'd love to begin. I gave a bunch of background about you, but what exactly motivated you to write this book? What was that decision point that made you say, you know what, let me just get started?
Well, it was a few years probably in the making. Writing a book hasn't been a bucket list thing for me my whole life necessarily. I was involved in a lawsuit. I wasn't the lawyer on this one. I was actually the defendant, unfortunately, on this one. It was a very complicated, very expensive, very long lawsuit, and had been going on for about 2.5, close to 3 years. And just before, like 3 days before the trial started, it had to be postponed because of an unfortunate event in the judge's family. Luckily, that turned out okay, but I felt completely and totally helpless. Like nothing, I was in control of nothing in my life. And I'm not a controlling person by any means. At least I don't feel like I am, but I felt completely out of control. So I had 3 weeks off, which is how long we had scheduled for the trial. I didn't have anything planned, so I thought I'm just going to do something just for me, where the outcome really doesn't matter. It's just starting and finishing something, and I'm the only one that it's going to affect. So I went to the store, the art supply store. I'm not a painter, and I bought some canvas and some paint, and I just started painting. I just had this need to be creative that I'd never really felt before, and maybe that helpless feeling kind of spurred that on possibly. But I just started painting, and my first few were absolutely terrible. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, they're somewhere in a dumpster somewhere. But as I kept going, I started to find I was getting a little better and a little better, and even to the point that, you might hang one on a wall in the room where no one else can see it. So I felt these creative juices start to flow a little bit. And fast forward a couple of years, and I'm reading a book by one of my favorite authors, Jack Carr. And I just thought, I think I can do this. I'm going to try it. I hadn't painted in a while, so I was kind of started to have those yearnings again. So I thought, I'm going to try it. So I finished the book, got out my computer, and just started writing. I had a basic idea where I wanted it to go, a very loose plot line. It has changed a number of times since then. The names changed, characters have changed, but I just started writing and got a few chapters into it, and then thought, man, am I wasting my time? Can I do this? Is this something that I'm capable of doing? And I'm not sure your closest friends are the best people to ask about that, because they're just going to be kind and, say, yeah, that sounds good. So I didn't want to do that. So I reached out to, he was a close friend, but he's also a writing professor, and I reached out to him and sent him the first few chapters, and he called me back and was very complimentary, and even told me, you have to finish this. You have to keep doing this. So I did. A big part of me was still thinking, yeah, but you're my buddy. You're just saying that. So, and then I got serious about it, and probably 8 to 9 months later, I had a finished product. I thought I had a finished product before until I hired a developmental editor, and then he showed me some errors of my ways, and you know, a lot of times I learned you have to stick to your guns on certain things. But I've never created anything. I don't have a creative writing degree. I've never written anything other than legal briefs and several thousand emails. But I've never written anything for anyone else's enjoyment. So I leaned on his recommendations, and he made it a much better product in my opinion. So then, it took me not as long as I thought, maybe a couple of weeks to doctor up what he had suggested, and I think it made it a lot better product. And so I'm excited to say that I've been done since about January. It's still going through the last minute edits, copy edits, design edits and things of that nature. I'm hoping to get the final copy back this week so we can press play on the publish button.
Understood. Got it. And, I love that you gave us a bunch of background with the writing process and how important editors are, because that's a huge topic to discuss here on the show. I mean, people feel all different ways about editors. Sometimes they're saying my book is great as is, and they're doing a bunch of revisions like you said and really embracing it. So it's something we should definitely dive a little bit more into. But first, I want to talk a little bit about you in the book. You mentioned that the main character, Ryan Wolf, is the man you'd like to be. So would you mind describing that to our audience? Like, what exactly about him do you see yourself in him?
He's younger, better looking, and smarter than me.
Oh, okay.
So. No, he is loosely based on my life, very loosely based. There's enough similarities to where when I finally let someone read the book who knows me well, he texted me back and said, 6'1" and 180, huh? I'm like, Ryan is not me. He's who I want to be. So, but there are some similarities there, but the differences are, he's, I feel like I wrote him to be, and maybe I'm being too hard on myself, a better person than me, a more dedicated person to his craft, probably. I have some good qualities. I have some strong qualities, but I also have enough self-awareness to know where my talents don't lie, for lack of a better term. He's a lot more diligent in certain things. He has the ability to really dive deep down into something and grind and spend time with it. Some of those qualities I would like to have. I like to be a little better at. And it's kind of hard to compare all his good qualities to my not so good qualities, possibly, without making me sound like I'm a terrible person. I don't believe that at all, but I see things in him, and I wrote things in him that I always kind of wished for myself. But at the same time, knowing my limitations and knowing that that's just not my strengths, and that's okay, because I have other strengths that I've had to utilize to make up for those. So he is in the beginning fearful, but I believe he morphs into someone who is far more fearless. So that's a quality I think I have, but I would like to continue to grow on.
Understood. Yeah. Well, it's great to know that you admire your characters so much, right? I feel like a lot of authors have a love-hate relationship with some of their characters, but for the most part, it is good to be able to pour yourself and that sort of aspiration into them as well. That being said, he also has a mentor, Colonel Chuck. Does that relate to your life as well? Have you ever had a mentor who, kind of guided you along in the same way as these characters?
I've had mentors. I think most of us have had mentors in their life that have brought them along. And Colonel Chuck is not a lawyer. He doesn't come from that world, but he is a kind of a life mentor for Ryan. Ryan's father was never the kind he could lean on for advice. His father was a good man, a very solid individual with an extremely strong work ethic. But vulnerability was not one of his strong suits, and leaning on him for advice was not something that Ryan could ever do. So he's developed this kind of father figure with Colonel Chuck, and some of Colonel Chuck's advice goes beyond the lesson that he's teaching him at the moment, and he can utilize in other parts of his life as well. And not to be too much of a spoiler, but and I know we talked about this, Ryan just is going to find out, and maybe the next book, that some of the life lessons that his father was trying to teach him were very similar, and that he just didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah, well, that's always what's cool, is to see like realization coming through, and not, and like kind of building up to that as well as a whole nother like element of good storytelling too. So everybody listening today, I think so far we're really learning some really cool stuff about just like world building and building these characters and basing it off of your life too, which you told me yourself, like a good story is what sells, because you're right, it's what draws people, and just you telling how this relates to your experience, right. Tenfold. I see exactly what you mean by that. So let's dive in a little bit more about the book itself then.
Yeah.
It does combine legal thriller elements with action sequences, some military elements as well. So what made you decide to blend these genres? I know, you have a background in all of them, but, surely you could have picked from many different types. Is it the write what you know approach, or perhaps something else?
A little bit of the write what you know approach. So the book itself, there is a case at the forefront of the book. Ryan is a lawyer, so it does have a legal thriller feel to it. I call it kind of a legal light novel. I don't find myself to be a good enough litigator to be a John Grisham style author who can take a case from start to finish and go through the intricacies of it. And quite honestly, I didn't want to do that. I've always loved reading the thrillers where there's either be a CIA operative, or a black ops operator, or just a general badass, for lack of a better way to say it. And I kind of always pictured myself as that character. I think a lot of readers do. They picture themselves as the character, and it always interested me. What would I do if I was thrust into this situation? How would I react when I'm not a trained operator? I'm not an FBI agent. I'm not a CIA agent. I have no military background. How would a normal person react? And that's kind of how Ryan's story evolves. Ryan just happens to be a lawyer. There happens to be a case that's the genesis of all the issues that he uncovers later in the book. And because of what he uncovers, especially at the end of the case, that forces him into this situation that I've always kind of wondered about. What would a regular person do if they were put in this situation? So that's why I combined both of them. I really truly enjoy the action thrillers, and so I wanted to take a normal human being and put them in that situation, and where their doubts come in, where their strengths start to show, and whether they're brave enough to find out whether they're going to be successful or fail.
Yeah, and kind of branching off that, you're mentioning like the challenges they're facing, all of that. He also faces a moral dilemma as well, from what I understand, right? Because the legal system doesn't provide a path to justice. Not giving too much away, but were you hoping that readers would take something away from this conflict as well, like maybe an overarching message?
Yeah, I was, and it doesn't just have to. I don't expect my readers to face the same challenges that Ryan has to face at the end of the book. I pray they do not, but hopefully make it a little more interesting than normal everyday life. But it's the way he is completely out of his element, the way he feels overwhelmed. He's up against gargantuan odds. It's a true David and Goliath tale that could go into any walk of life. If you're struggling with your finances and you feel like you're completely overwhelmed, there's no way I can get out from under this. Yes, you can. If you're unhealthy or overweight or whatever it is in your life, I would like to think, and maybe I'm being a little too, thinking my book is a little loftier than it is, but I hope they could take that and feel that, feel empowered to take on whatever it is that's challenging them right now. Whatever it is that they feel like is either holding them back, or they're not living the full extent of their life or their happiness, or being their as the buzzword is now, their best self, for lack of a better way to put it. I hope they could take that and see that in some small way, take what Ryan has learned and apply that to their own lives, and know that there's nothing that's so insurmountable that they can't overcome it.
That's really inspiring, to be honest. Like a lot of books out there try to inspire people, self-help books, whatever the genre might be, but doing it through the action of the character in a book, it's another level to do it.
And I hope it comes through that way. And if not, well, hopefully they're just entertained then.
Well, I guess they have to read it to find out, right?
That's right.
Another thing in your book is the theme of loyalty, right? Between the friends, the colleagues, the criminal world. Was this also intentional, or did this kind of come about in the character building?
It was, it became intentional. I didn't set out to do that, but it became intentional. As a matter of fact, some of the characters' names in the book are my friends' names. Now, a lot of authors will do what I love. I love the idea of what they do. They will take, a benefactor to a charity of their choice, let's say, and they'll take some of the larger benefactors and they'll name a character after that. And I think that's a wonderful way to go about it. I don't have that kind of pull. So I thought, I'm going to show my loyalty to my friends, or my thank you to my friends for their loyalty over the years. And I'm going to name a character after them. It's just my small way of saying thank you. And no one else in the world will get it except for my little inside circle who also know these folks. I'm happy to say that none of the actual people that the characters are named after are international criminals, to my knowledge. I don't believe they are. But I loved the characters in books I've read before who were the great right-hand man, or the guy you can absolutely count on when the chips are down. You can count on them to come through for you. And Ryan, being the protagonist, is the same way to them as well. And I think that creates I think people can identify with that, people in their lives. Hopefully they have people in their lives like that. Hopefully they're that kind of person to their friends as well. So yeah, loyalty was a large part of the characters that were the good guys anyway. The bad guys were actually probably the most fun to write, because I had to think in a way I have never thought before, and try to put my mindset in a position that, what would someone who's completely depraved do in this situation? How would they react? And the loyalty on their side is, as you can imagine, feigned loyalty. The loyalty is more to themselves, more so than to their friends or their business partners. So I really enjoyed writing both of those, and the differences in the two, one true loyalty and one just fake loyalty.
Awesome. No, I understand that a lot. And what's cool is that you did kind of, give a tribute to your friends in the book, as you mentioned before. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit of the writing process then, right? Like how did you go about doing that? Like integrating known people into your books? Did I understand that correctly, that you were doing that, or loosely basing it off of some people you knew?
Well, I didn't necessarily loosely base it off of them.
Or just name
a
it?
little bit.
Okay.
I would name, I had the character, and you have to name it someone. So I would take certain friends of mine, and sometimes, I kind of word after, like, some of my friends I didn't name, are they going to think that they're not as good of friends as what these
true,
are? But,
yeah.
but it's just who I happen to be. Maybe I saw him earlier in the day, or I was going to see him later, or play golf with him, or something of that nature. So I just, I use their names, and it was kind of fun with a couple of them who, let's just say one of them in particular really cares about the way he looks. And I made him not look anything like he does in real life.
Oh, geez.
Poking a little fun at him, which was no one in the world's going to know that except for our small group of friends. So, the writing process, well, I'm not one that, I don't think I'm creative enough to sit down and write an outline start to finish for every chapter of the book, or for every act in the book, or for everything that happens. I find myself to be more creative while I'm being creative. I didn't know how the book was going to end until I wrote it. So I had an idea, but I didn't know exactly how it was going to end until I wrote it. So I feel that works best for me, or that worked best for me. I kind of have, like in the next chapter of the book, it's a very simple idea. The way I talk about it is one of my favorite books ever is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. In a nutshell, it's two ex-Army Rangers, now ranchers in Texas, decide to move cattle to Montana. That's the plot of the book. If you want to boil it down to now, obviously things happen and the character development is phenomenal in that book, but that's the way I approach it. So it's not such a daunting task to go, okay, I've got to come up with 48 chapters and I haven't developed any of them yet. That's extremely daunting to me. So I try to boil it down into 2 or 3 sentences and then I can grow from there.
So when you're doing that, though, that must have been the reason why you had to rely so heavily on a developmental editor, as we mentioned before. This is a good segue back into it, right? Because if you didn't have a plan for the outline, no matter how good of a writer you are, more than likely you probably had to jump back and fix a few things along the way. Is that correct?
A few things is not doing it justice. Yes, I had to fix a lot of things. And that's the downside of not having a good outline, like you're saying, is I would go one way with something, and then a little bit later, I want to go this way with it. And I start weaving through, and then I go, oh, wait a minute. I've already messed up this. I've already messed up this. I've already messed up this, because you can't say this because I've already locked myself in back over here. So right. I've learned to plot a little bit more in the next book. And so, this is a learning process for me as well, never having done this before. And I think I've made huge strides from book 1 to book 2, which I'm about roughly a third of the way through with some roughly, and I'll say rough, the chapters are still very rough, but I know where I want it to go at least. And I have it plotted out at least. So I think I've made huge strides there in the second book. But yeah, once you lock yourself in, I mean, with a good editor, you can go back and change those. Once you publish the book, you're locked in. So I've even found that in this book that I've kind of wanted to do some things. I'm like, no, can't do that. So that exercises your creative mind and your creative muscles. Say, well, okay, I've already locked myself in. Now I have to work around that. So again, it's been a real learning process, and one that's been very fun to do. I'm kind of, in the self-publishing world, you're kind of swimming alone. If you want someone to help you with it, got to find them and you got to pay them. So, and I'm okay doing that because I value the ones I found. I really value their opinion. But I'm kind of learning on the fly, and I'm a learner by doer. I can't have someone tell me how to do something. I have to actually try it, do it before I can ever learn how. So I think that's the best way for me to do this, is just make some mistakes, and don't be afraid to make some mistakes, because I certainly have made many.
No, I mean, you're right. You can't be afraid to make those mistakes. And at the end of the day, there is that whole theory of keep writing, don't stop, don't edit until you're done. And that's, I guess, kind of the path you took, right? You didn't stick to the outline. It might have been a little bit messy, a lot of work went into it. But at the end of the day, I mean, look at it now. It's, out there, people are buying it, people are loving it. Have you received any particular feedback that, you're most proud of from this book?
I'm still probably, I would say, 2 weeks away from it actually publishing. It's in the very final stages. I have, posted it on certain websites where, you can have advanced reader copies and the thing.
Okay, I do apologize for misunderstanding. I actually thought you were referring to your second book that was still in this series. I thought the other one was out, actually. That's my mistake.
No, it's okay.
But by the time our listeners hear this, it's probably going to be ready to go.
I would certainly hope so. If not, I'm gonna pull all my hair out.
Where can they find out some updates on it? Since we've been hearing all about this whole time, everyone's gonna want to check it out and say, "Oh, is it ready yet?" So a website maybe, or
yes, BradElderNovels.com. That's my name, Brad Elder Novels with an S.com. They can get updates of when it's going to publish. They can get a sneak peek of the prologue. Just join my email list, and it'll automatically send it out to them. If they're members of NetGalley, which some are, they can download the entire book now and read it, review it if they'd like to. If they like it, I would love for them to review it. If they don't, well, maybe review another book that you did love. But no, I've gotten good feedback from the reviews I've received. I'm really proud of the reviews I've gotten. I remember when the first one came through and I have the email that said your book has been reviewed. Man, my heart was pounding, absolutely pounding. But as I went on and read it, it swells you with a little bit of pride. Obviously, this is kind of an ego thing, and it's something creative that you're very vulnerable when you do this. I mean, it's the feeling of vulnerability was overwhelming for me once I, started putting it out to folks, and not knowing, truly knowing if others would respond to it. Reading the reviews and the positives it's extremely rewarding. Obviously, that's not the reason you do it, but come on, it's part of the reason you do it, right? And hopefully sell a few copies as well. But to have someone say, "Good job," it goes so far, and that goes in all walks of life, to your kids, to your employees, to your teammates. Just the word, "Hey, good job." It's extremely motivating. It is to me anyway. So, and I think even to Ryan, he longs for that as well. He never really got that from his dad. And so he longs for that approval from his peers and other father figures in his life and other folks in his life that he has respect for. But yeah, it's a process that I didn't expect to feel that nervous when I got the review, but there was no mistake. I was very nervous, but again, I'm very glad for and very appreciative of the kind words that the folks who reviewed it have said.
Yeah, I know. So that's really good to know that you're still getting the feedback, even though it's not quite out yet. I think it's another reason for anybody to be excited to check it out when it does come out. So definitely mark your calendars, everybody. Check out Brad Elder, the website.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I talked over you that bradeldernovels.com. They can follow me on Facebook at Brad Elder Novels, and on Instagram. I'm not real good at Instagram, I'll be honest with you. I think it missed my generation by a little bit, but it's brad.elder.novels. And so I have to have my daughter help me with that. But it's my Facebook page is more developed. But yeah, they can see, find out a little bit more about me, keep up with updates when it's going to be ready, or go to my website and see a sneak peek of the prologue.
Perfect. I love that. And I also really do like that you're giving us a little bit of that sneak peek. It's a perfect way, a good piece of advice to all of our listeners, that if you're trying to get people to be interested in your book and a little bit hooked, reading a little bit is the best way to do it. I mean, just like we mentioned before, a good story is what sells. If they find themselves needing to really just pick up and figure out what's going to happen next after that, then they're more than likely to check out the whole thing. So
that's right.
Really cool. I wonder, do you have any other last bits of advice for aspiring authors? Any type of genre, any type of advice for them to leave with today?
This is going to sound simplistic, but just sit down and start the process. And that goes with anything. I heard a tip years ago. It wasn't about writing, it was about exercise. And if you're someone who exercises after work, let's say, the second you get home from work, go put on your workout clothes. Right. Even if you sit down for a minute, or even if you eat a little dinner or something, that's one less thing you have to do, one less stumbling block or roadblock in your way that you have to do. Now all you have to do, grab your keys and walk out the door, or grab your shoes and go on a run. So just start it. Just start the process. And even if you don't have the full landscape of what you're going to write, you're never going to finish it unless you start. Again, that sounds very simplistic, but sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, because there's always the self-doubt that says, I can't do this. I can't do this. Well, how do you know? Have you tried it? So just start writing. That would be my best piece of advice. Again, very simplistic, maybe not what the magic wand that everyone wants to hear, but in order to finish one, you have to start writing it.
No, I mean, it's definitely magic, like you said. It does sound simple, but it's something people actually need to know. They can't just sit there thinking, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do that. You have to actually put your best hand forward and start, typing on the computer.
That's right. And don't be afraid to self-publish. It's, for years and years, the only way to get your book published is, got to find an agent, which is extremely difficult. And then from there, you have to find, hopefully that agent will get you a publishing contract, which is exceedingly difficult. And then you have to get all departments within the publisher to buy into your book, to actually put the work in to push it. So it's the traditional publishing world, although it's wonderful if you can do that, it's not your only chance to get your book to the public. If you don't believe me, just go on and Google self-publishing, and you look at the myriads of software of companies out there, and beware of some of those companies. But the incredible amount of product we have now that will allow us to self-publish a book. There's some sharks out there who say that they can do everything for you from start to finish. All you have to do is write your book and hand it over to them. I would steer clear of that, because they're extremely expensive. And I've bought into it, and I've been I'm not going to name names, but I've been pretty disappointed, actually very disappointed with the process, because it's just not, I think I could have done it quicker and better. I'll just say that. And anyone out there can as well with a little bit of research.
Okay, I see where you're coming from there. Authors on Mission does offer services very similar to that too. So I can assure you, like, it most likely does have to do with, who you are working with and their processes,
100%.
perhaps
No doubt about that.
communication.
No
Over
doubt
here,
about
we
that.
do have a huge amount of team members who do work together, and we make sure that our clients are taken care of and that their vision is exactly what they're looking for. But you're right, everything is situational, and whoever you were working with, I mean, they obviously did something wrong. So
yeah, and okay, you're bringing up a very good point here. You're obviously out in the public. You're educating folks. Fault is probably on my own for not doing the research a little better, I would say. And so I think that I should probably reword the one I chose. And I've heard horror stories about a couple of others that are the same way, that you have to be extremely careful with who you're going to choose, because it is very daunting.
yeah,
It's a very daunting task. Like, how do I start this? And if they can lean on someone such as yourself, or in others out there who are very knowledgeable and helpful, if they can lean on someone to kind of give them a pathway and say, this is the steps, this is the processes, it could be invaluable. Do your research, though. Black Authors on a Mission. That would be my first choice.
Oh, I appreciate it. And, hey, whoever you do go with, people, just figure out what you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for ghostwriting services or editing services or marketing, right? Whatever it is. But, certain people do certain things better. You look it up and figure out what you actually do need. Don't be sold into something that, they're trying to upsell you, maybe, wanting to make sure you pay for more than you actually want. There are certain things you could do yourself. So
yeah, that's the key to watch out for, is the upsell. So
yeah, definitely.
And, but I've been so happy with this process, and it's opened up a world in my life that I never thought was possible. I didn't think I would be writing a book or following it up with another book or speaking to great folks like you on a podcast about it. I can't imagine having not done this. If you're looking to do this, sitting here right now, and I haven't sold a single copy yet. So take that as what you will, but I can't imagine having not started this process.
Yeah. I mean, again, you do have to just get started and be happy with it. Ask yourself, as you said, why not me? Make that action, just get into it, because, even if you have a little bit of desire to write that book, then if you don't give it a shot, it's never going to happen. So I really appreciate all these tips. These are amazing things for our listeners to hold on to today. And yeah, thank you for joining us. It's been a true pleasure hearing about your book and your techniques.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is very, very informative and a lot of fun.
Definitely. And to our listeners, remember that success often comes from, taking what your experiences, and putting them in writing in new and unexpected ways. So whether you're considering writing a book or pursuing another creative endeavor, like, Brad dabbled in a ton of stuff, think about Brad's story, the lessons he's given us in persistence, authenticity, the courage to try something new. Be sure to stay up to date on the Recoil of Justice release date. The link's going to be in the description box of this podcast. So go ahead, check out the website, be on top of it. And until next time, this is Danielle Hutchinson from Authors on Mission, empowering you to be an expert in your own right. Until next time, please keep writing, keep reading, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.